Blood sugar does not spike because you suddenly became diabetic. It spikes because, over many years, the body slowly loses its ability to move glucose out of the bloodstream and into cells efficiently. And by the time most people are in their late 50s or 60s, this process is already well underway long before any lab report uses the word diabetes. What makes this dangerous is not just high numbers on a glucose meter, but what those spikes do silently inside the body, damaging blood vessels, stiffening arteries, injuring nerves, weakening kidneys, impairing vision, and accelerating aging at a cellular level. Many seniors believe controlling blood sugar means avoiding sugar alone, but decades of metabolic research show that blood sugar regulation depends far more on insulin sensitivity, inflammation, gut signaling, and muscle glucose uptake than on sugar intake alone. The encouraging truth is that food can still influence these systems powerfully even after 60, and among thousands of foods studied, 3 stand out consistently for their ability to blunt glucose spikes, improve insulin response, and lower post-meal blood sugar in a sustained physiological way. These foods are not exotic, not expensive, and not supplements. They are lentils, leafy green vegetables, and cinnamon, and their effects are supported by a large body of research from endocrinology, nutrition, and aging journals. Let's start with lentils, because from a metabolic standpoint, they may be one of the most underappreciated blood sugar stabilizing foods available to seniors. Lentils are rich in soluble fiber, resistant starch, and plant protein, a combination that slows carbohydrate absorption dramatically and reduces post-meal glucose spikes. When lentils enter the digestive system, their fiber forms a gel-like structure that delays gastric emptying, meaning glucose enters the bloodstream gradually rather than in a sudden surge. Clinical studies comparing lentils to refined carbohydrates consistently show significantly lower post-meal glucose and insulin responses, even when total carbohydrate content is similar. This is critical because insulin spikes drive insulin resistance over time. Lentils also feed beneficial gut bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids such as butyrate, which improve insulin sensitivity in the liver and muscles. Research published in diabetes and metabolism journals shows that regular legume consumption improves fasting glucose, HbA1c, and insulin sensitivity in older adults, including those with type 2 diabetes and prediabetes. Another overlooked benefit of lentils is that they stabilize blood sugar without stressing the pancreas. Unlike refined carbs that force the pancreas to release large amounts of insulin quickly, lentils create a slow, manageable demand, allowing insulin to work more efficiently. This is especially important for seniors whose pancreatic beta cell function naturally declines with age. Moving to the second food, leafy green vegetables such as spinach, fenugreek leaves, kale, and mustard greens play a different but equally important role in controlling blood sugar spikes. These vegetables are extremely low in digestible carbohydrates, but rich in magnesium, nitrates, antioxidants, and polyphenols that improve insulin signaling. Magnesium, in particular, is essential for insulin receptor activity, and deficiency is strongly associated with insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes in older adults. Leafy greens also improve glucose uptake by muscles, which is where most glucose should go after meals. Studies show that diets high in leafy greens are associated with lower fasting glucose, improved insulin sensitivity, and reduced risk of progression from prediabetes to diabetes. Another mechanism through which leafy greens blunt sugar spikes is by improving endothelial function. Healthy blood vessels allow insulin and glucose to reach muscle cells efficiently. When endothelial function declines with age, glucose remains in the bloodstream longer. Nitrates in leafy greens increase nitric oxide availability, improving microcirculation and glucose delivery to tissues. Additionally, the fiber content of greens slows digestion and reduces glycemic load when eaten before or with carbohydrate-containing meals. This is why research shows that starting meals with vegetables significantly reduces post-meal glucose excursions. The third food, cinnamon, works through yet another pathway and has been studied extensively for its effects on glucose metabolism. Cinnamon contains bioactive compounds such as cinnamaldehyde and polyphenols that enhance insulin sensitivity by increasing insulin receptor phosphorylation and improving glucose transporter activity in cells. Multiple randomized controlled trials have shown that cinnamon supplementation or regular dietary intake lowers fasting blood glucose, improves HbA1c, and reduces insulin resistance, particularly in adults over 50. Cinnamon also slows gastric emptying, reducing the speed at which glucose enters the bloodstream, and has anti-inflammatory effects that further improve insulin signaling. Importantly, cinnamon does not stimulate insulin release. Instead, it makes the body more responsive to the insulin already present, which is a safer and more sustainable mechanism for seniors. The combined power of these three foods lies in the fact that they target blood sugar from different angles simultaneously. Lentils slow absorption and stabilize insulin demand. Leafy greens improve insulin signaling and glucose uptake, and cinnamon enhances insulin sensitivity and reduces post-meal spikes. When used together as part of daily meals, their effects are additive and synergistic. For example, a meal that includes lentils cooked with vegetables and seasoned lightly with cinnamon has a dramatically lower glycemic impact than a meal with refined grains or starchy foods alone. Long-term observational studies show that populations consuming high amounts of legumes and vegetables have significantly lower rates of type 2 diabetes and fewer diabetes-related complications even in older age. It is also important to understand what these foods do not do. They do not replace medication when medication is needed, they do not reverse diabetes overnight, and they do not cancel out excessive sugar intake, inactivity, or poor sleep. However, they improve the metabolic environment in which blood sugar is regulated, making medications more effective and reducing long-term complications. Seniors often make the mistake of focusing only on avoiding sweets while continuing to eat refined grains, large portions, and low-fiber meals, which still spike blood sugar significantly. Another common mistake is relying on fruit juices or diabetic packaged foods, which often raise glucose levels despite marketing claims. In contrast, lentils, leafy greens, and cinnamon are whole foods with predictable physiological effects. Timing also matters. Eating lentils and vegetables earlier in the day improves glucose control throughout the day, while heavy carbohydrate meals at night worsen insulin resistance and increase fasting glucose the next morning. Research on circadian metabolism shows that insulin sensitivity declines in the evening, making late-night meals particularly harmful for seniors. These foods are generally safe for most people, though those on blood sugar-lowering medications should monitor levels to avoid hypoglycemia when making dietary changes. The broader message is that blood sugar control after 60 is not about restriction, but about strategic nourishment. The body still responds to the right signals, and food remains one of the most powerful tools for influencing metabolism safely. Lentils, leafy greens, and cinnamon do not work because they are trendy or traditional. They work because they align with human metabolic biology and address the root causes of glucose dysregulation, insulin resistance, inflammation, and impaired glucose uptake. When seniors understand this and apply it consistently, blood sugar spikes become smaller, energy improves, complications slow down, and quality of life improves. That is why, from a medical and scientific standpoint, these three foods stand out as the most reliable dietary tools for bringing blood sugar down naturally and safely over time.